What's up everyone? Just wanted to do some testing of Days Gone. Now this is a favorite of mine that I've kind of been savoring. I haven't actually finished this game, but it is an awesome game and I wanted to test out RSR in this title. So first off, I'll just show you the performance with uncapped FPS, and the settings I am running are UltraWide 3440x1440, which is a little bit hard for this GPU, and we need to set it to full screen actually. We do that. And this is with native resolution and these settings here. Now these are hardware unboxed, like optimized settings basically, but you know, texture filter quality and foliage draw distance can be turned down with, and cloud and fog with minimal visual impact, but it does give a slight boost to FPS, so we get more dips under 60 if I turn these back up, but you know, the visual quality is not worth having those turned up. Now everything else is as you can see here. And just showing the frame rate, you can see that it's still not completely stable 60 FPS, especially on the 1% lows. And once I start to run around...
What's up?
Hey, Manny.
Okay. You'll just be able to see it here, that there are little, you know, hiccups here and there. And I can actually feel some of those in the mouse. If I'm trying to move the mouse at the exact same time as it happens, there is a slight, you know, input latency penalty, I guess you could call it. But it's not like full stuttery or anything. It's just that you can see those spikes in the FPS graph, in the frame time graph, and it's not 100% smooth. And the reason I'm rebenching this is because we now have the May preview driver with RSR and its own sharpening slider. If we want to try and improve performance without getting too much of a visual impact. Like, I don't know how RSR is going to run with this game, but because it is game agnostic, meaning you can use it in any game in full screen mode, we might be able to boost the performance considerably and still have a pretty good image quality. So just take this in, and 72 FPS, but see those 1% lows, that's what I want to bring up. Sorry, the game has its own audio that just randomly, you know, that's him talking on the walkie-talkies. So what we're going to do now is we're going to enable...
I go up there because there's freaks up there. I kill them here, I kill them there. Bounties are all the same to me.
Talk to his friend.
And what are the tulips for, huh?
And what we're going to do now is we're going to enable RSR. Now, the RSR is already enabled by default at the driver level. And all I have to do to enable it fully is lower the in-game display resolution to anything at the same aspect ratio lower than 3440x1440, lower than my native resolution. So we're going to just go one notch down, 3024x1296, and hit apply. Confirm that. And now we should see higher FPS, 86. And now we actually have an added benefit. I'll just pause that because of the talking. Now we actually have an added benefit, is when you enable RSR, it's similar to having Radeon image sharpening enabled, except I'm still running at a native resolution. Like, I'm still running at 3440x1440 for all purposes of recording and uploading videos, etc. And the quality of the window is 3440x1440, so it's upscaled, right? But the added benefit of RSR is we also have the sharpening slider now from the May preview driver. So you might actually notice the image quality got sharper when I lowered the resolution.
I gotta go.
And it may even look better than it just did.
Tulips, Boozer, they're stone crop. Get it right.
So just have a look at that. But more importantly, look at the 1% lows and the average FPS. We're up at 86. And you can't see it on screen, but I've opened the sidebar where I can actually adjust the Radeon Super Resolution sharpening effect in-game. And what I'm going to do is it's at 90% now. And you can't see this, it doesn't show up in recording, but I'm going to crank it to 100%. So you saw everything brighten up a little bit. That's actually increased sharpness. And then I'm going to lower it down 90, just to show you guys what it looks like. 80, 70, 60, 50, and you might see like the grass in the distance, like over here, these bushes. You might see these bushes over to the left of his shoulder. You might see them start to blur as I go under 50%. So 40, and then 20, and now sharpen effect is off. Now, sharpen effect off is essentially running RSR off. It's like I tried putting the sharpening effect to 0 and turning RSR on and off using the hotkey. So if I Alt-U to turn it off, again, you might see no visual difference. It's because the sharpening effect is basically the upscaling quality. That's the best way I can describe it. So even though we are at 3024 by 1296 upscaled to 340 by 1440, the sharpen effect slider is the upscaling quality. So if I have it on 0, there's no quality improvement at all from turning it on and off. So I've just turned it on and off a couple of times now, and you guys would have seen nothing. Now if I crank it to 50% and I turn it on and off, you'll see it sharpen. And so that's on, off, on, off, on, and then if I crank it, this is where I start to see the most difference, is around 90 to 100%. So here's 90%, and then it's on right now, off, on, off, and you can just see all the leaves, everything upscaled really nicely. But at the same time, over in the distance, like to the right of his shoulder, over his right shoulder, you can see that the far side grass is a little bit too sharp. So I'm going to try going down to 80 and 70, maybe around 75 is a better, you know, might look a little bit better, and off, on. So it's just slightly sharpened, but not over sharpened. So I think 75 might be good for this game, like with limited testing, obviously. But more importantly, we want to see nice input latency and no FPS drop under 60. So 0.1 is just a given. Normally you will get some really, really minor dips on 0.1% of frames. You do not normally feel that in input latency or in gameplay. You only feel the 1%, which is like a larger percentage of the frames dipping under 60, where you'll really start to notice lag or input latency and stutter and things like that. So if the 1% are good, the game will feel very smooth. And as you can see now, even just one notch down, we'll try going back into the town. We'll see if we keep dipping under 60.
Open the gate already.
And it's normal when you go into a populated area. It's normal to get some FPS drop, but we want to see how smooth it feels. If it's dropping low enough that I actually feel lag in game, and it's feeling pretty good. Like even when I walked into town, it dipped to 40 on the 1%. It's holding 70 now that I'm actually in here. So there was like really, really minor texture streaming or object streaming dip from going in and out. See 40, it gets, yeah, there's a dip to around 48 around this area, but it is not low enough to actually cause any significant input latency. And I've got my benchmark on a ring rotation where if I run into an area, it'll reset itself for that area. So it's on a period, it'll update itself. So the 1% low for actually being in this small village, survivor camp,
good to see you, D.
the 1% low is literally 70 FPS up from 60. Or under 60. So now we'll try going back to native, just so you can actually see what it was running with the same settings. Back at native resolution. And it actually looks a bit blurrier now. We don't have the Radeon image sharpening. And I'm going to reset the benchmark, and we're just going to run.
Deacon St. John.
We're holding 70.
Hey, Damon.
And I'll do a lap around this. This is basically where I was running.
Hey, Deke. That was life in the
So
shit.
64. It's not actually that bad.
How's it going?
Deke,
and we'll see how it if there's any noticeable jitter when we go in and out. Around here it was dipping to 48. May have loaded everything it needed. Like a lot of the FPS drop comes from initially loading, so if it's cached everything, maybe that's why it's smoothed out. I'm actually noticing it's fine now, even at native resolution, and the 1%'s at 56. The average is still holding around 70,
hey,
and
Deke, how's it going?
it feels. Oh no, there's a little just there. Around here, I felt a little bit of mouse as I tried to pan the camera. I felt a little bit of, input delay. But I mean, this is still running pretty good. It's playable. But does it look better than Radeon Super Resolution? I would argue that it doesn't, because the Super Resolution actually sharpened this up. So if we just look here, I'll just stand here and I'll show you what I mean. See here on the right with that NPC?
Nothing.
For me, at least on 34-inch ultra-wide for this resolution, the books and that palette there are not super sharp. Like, it just seems a little bit oily. I don't know what a better word to describe it. And still decent. Like, it's still a nice looking game. but as well the character models just seem a little bit soft. I don't know how to explain it in a better way. It just looks a little bit soft. And if I actually go back and lower the resolution so we get that RSR sharpening again, not only do we get like a 10 FPS boost on the average, or a 5 to 8 FPS boost, he looks sharper, Deacon looks sharper, and the books, everything looks a bit sharper for me. So hopefully you can see that. The ground looks better, and if I disable it, you can just see it all kind of get a little bit blurry again. So we are at a low resolution, but you can just see even the text on that little book there, I couldn't barely make it out before, right in front of him. Like I can't move the camera the right way. But KHYGR, and when I enable it, it sharpens right up. Looks really good. And the barrels, they look a bit blurry until I enable RSR. So that's interesting, and I guess what we should do now is see how high we can actually push the performance. For those of you on, obviously there is scaling, there is input latency benefits and smoother gameplay by having higher frame rate. Even if it's not a competitive shooter, you can still feel like the game can still feel better. And the next step down from 3024 at the same aspect ratio for me is 2560 by 1080, which is basically not half, but like 75% or so of the native resolution. And we'll see how that looks. I'd say it still looks pretty darn good compared to native 3440 by 1440. But I have to, what I have to do, I have to go out of here, and I actually have to, do I have Days Gone? I don't know, what's the EXE called? It's literally daysgone.exe, it's just there. I have to lower this size down to actually get the window to display properly. And now we are up at 112 FPS with 100 on the 1% mode. Now that is awesome. That is an awesome boost. And we'll see if it dips though. Like I'll run around this town. There could be CPU, system bandwidth, other bottlenecks in the system that the game wants to use that cause those drops. So we can't always be guaranteed that easing up the GPU will ease up other areas that may be bottlenecking. But from the looks of it, the GPU is fully utilized even at this resolution. So the CPU and the memory bandwidth is fine. That's basically what the game is telling me.
Manny?
The optimization is good, basically, to push such a high frame rate. And it just comes down to how intense the scene is. Now, running out here, we have not dipped under 60 FPS yet. And now what we want to do is I'll disable RSR just to show you what the without RSR, what the game looks like. Disabled. And everything's just a little bit blurrier, that's all. The game still looks like decent at 2560 by 1080. And if you're on a smaller monitor, you might not notice it that much. But if I re-enable it, it's the same scene we were looking at before. Enabled, disabled, enabled. You have to look really closely, like it's mainly on the character model itself. Like if I can get a good angle here. Disabled. See his face? If you'll just look at the camera. Enabled, disabled, enabled, and because we are at a lower resolution overall, I could also crank up the sharpening effect instead of 74%, because we are at that, we're at 2560 by 1080 now. I'll try cranking it up to 85%. And we'll see if it looks even sharper. So, disabled, enabled. Disabled, enabled. I notice it on the plants a lot more than I do on his specific face details, but his clothing does sharpen up a fair bit too. So, disabled. Just watch his back. If I can get a good angle. I need to stand near something so the camera will let me get that. Really? I need something solid. I'll try running against a rock or something. Here we go. This is still a bad spot with the lighting. This might be a good spot if I can get the camera angle just right. Enabled, disabled. So just look at the writing in between the all the different weapons he's got in his back. You can actually see some of the jacket logo. When I enable it right now, you can see that really sharpen up, even the fabric on his jacket. Disabled, enabled, disabled, enabled, disabled, and also pay attention to the FPS because there is a slight hit for this upscaling. So disabled, 138 FPS, enabled, 132. So it is like a 6 FPS hit, but I mean, given the image quality improvement, I would say that's pretty darn worth it. Disabled, enabled, disabled, enabled. So just to give you guys like disabled, enabled, like I do this a lot just because it helps people spot those differences. If you don't notice them straight away, you can look really closely. You might change your, you might be looking at like his shirt and then you go look at one of the plants, and that's why I have to do it multiple times so that you can look at different areas of the screen. And we can also, you know, even just like some bark on a tree, you know, although these are pretty low quality textures to begin with, we're not going to get much improvement there, but disabled, enabled, a little bit on that little decal that's on the tree. You can kind of see like some moss growing. If I disable it, that gets really blurry. Enabled, it sharpens right up. And we can even try cranking the sharpening effect, which is kind of like the upscaling effect, to 95%. So we were on 85, now we're at 95, and then we'll go all the way to 100. So I've got it on 100 now. And I think the grass gets over sharpened with 100, like you can just see it. So if I disable it, look at that massive difference. That's over sharpening right here. So I want to go back down to maybe 90, where it's not so distracting. Disabled, enabled. Even 90 is a bit hard. What about 80? Disabled, enabled. That's better. Like at 80, it sharpens the grass a little bit, but not where it's like reflecting into my eyes from the moonlight. This is a little bit better, more natural. Now we did still get some FPS drop there. That was probably texture streaming or loading FPS drop that just tends to happen as you enter a new area of the map. It's the way the game does it. It does not have direct storage yet, because it is a really old console port, for lack of a better way to describe it. But we will try driving around. This game's so cool. Just the motorbikes, they're awesome. We'll see how this is handled. See if we still get lots of FPS drop. Now that 1% low is real-time 1% low. So, you know, if we're dropping to 24, then it looks like RSR cannot completely eliminate some of the writing stutters, as you can see here. And I'll try disabling RSR just in case it has something to do with that. It'll get blurry, but we'll see if it still does. You know, and I'll reset the counter. This is on hard, by the way, if I take tons of damage if stuff hits me. Okay, so it's still doing it, but not as badly. It seems like the RS... Oh no, it still dipped. That was a sharp drop to 10. So we'll turn RSR back on. It still doesn't seem like an RSR thing. The game still looks really good though. And we'll try just going along this stretch of road now that I've passed it already. We'll see if it's caged some stuff and if we still get severe 1% load drop under 20. Yeah, somewhere there's like a loading point. I don't know. Between those two signs, my non-expert analysis is that somewhere around those two signs we get a severe drop. I'll reset the counter. It resets by itself, but I can reset it manually, the FPS benchmark. So 85 on 1% lows, and then we're going to try going past those two signs. I think it's just a loading point in the game for the next area, somewhere around here. No, it didn't do it that time. It could just be random. It randomly will load a new area depending on something. Or maybe coming from this direction. Nope. Okay, maybe it's cached everything it needs. The VRAM usage isn't that high though, so kind of weird. I'm not sure what is causing that. Maybe aggroing the mobs and having them first aggro to the player is also part of the problem. Like what was causing it. Now that those mobs are aggroed and it's not like dynamically picking up the aggro, that could have been triggering those 1% drops. Because I aggroed like 3 or 4 at once, and you know, maybe 1 is fine. I'd have to go back and look at the video and see if the GPU utilization was dropping at the same time as those drops, because if it was, that could have been CPU or memory latency causing it. Because as we all know, having more like L3 cache, for example, can help boost 1% loads considerably, like with the 5800X3D. And it could have been something like that, like the L3 cache was swapping out for whatever reason, swapping resources, and it dipped. But now we're holding a pretty stable 70 in this same area. Not too bad. But, I mean, look at the average as well. Like, this is definitely a benefit. A huge boost to performance, and it looks really good. I'm gonna get rid of some of these mobs, they're annoying. Ow!
There we go.
Jeez. Can't really aim it, can I? Wow, he's really good at balancing.
Get in there.
Okay, what I'm going to do now is just to give you guys that visual. You've seen what it looks like with the RSR and the upscaling, etc. And what we're going to try doing now is going back to 340 by 1440 native, so RSR will turn itself off, and we'll look at how bad that actually ran. Because it's out of a town, you know, the town is actually fairly intensive. We're at about 70 FPS here now. 80, I'd say 70, 80. So still very playable in terms of console-like performance. If you're looking at 60 FPS of what console runs, 30 to 60, we are still well above a console level, but it's not as stable. Like the frame rate is not holding as stable, you know, 60 FPS minimum. I'm gonna run out of fuel doing this. Oh, there's so many zombies now. So 77 FPS, we were up at 100 plus. Just before with RSR, and I wouldn't say the game looks considerably better at all. It looks about the same, if not a little bit less sharp. My bike is gonna run out of fuel. Okay, I've got a save point. You can coast in this, it's cool. Like, you can literally just roll the bike when you don't have fuel, and I think he'll push it with his leg. Yeah, you can walk a bike. Oh no. Can I, how do I even change weapon? I can't remember how to play! Oh, screw that off. I need, Sorry, I have not been playing this at all, so I didn't warm up or anything. But yeah, you can see here the combat and the 1% lows are down at 14 while trying to fight these zombies. And if I want that boost, I'll just go back to RSR. 2560 by 1080 was pretty good. And what we're going to do now is we're going to actually try to improve the performance further through my old script that I've advocated for in many other games. Get rid of these zombies, they're ruining my test. I mean, it's good. Like, you can see now, look, we're fighting zombies at 90 FPS on 1% lows. Much better than 14. They can dodge bullets. Oh, left click! Just left clicking, even with a weapon equipped, will just get out the, yeah. Alright, so yeah, you can see the significant difference in frame rate. we went from 70 with 14 FPS trying to fight zombies to 115 with 98 FPS, 1% lows in the same area. Now, what you can do to smooth out performance, see how the GPU utilization is at like 98 to 100%? That actually causes FPS drop when something intensive appears on the screen. You'll get more FPS drop when you're running uncapped. And because it's not a competitive title, now that we don't have to limit, because this was 70 FPS is what I used for 3440 by 1440 native before RSR ever released. Now that we have RSR and we can pull 110 FPS, I don't want to cap it actually too low. 102. I'll just try 102. But I'm on a 100 Hz monitor, so it's different for everyone. If you're on a lower refresh rate monitor, you would use lower. If you're on higher, you would use higher. But now I'll cap that FPS to 102 and see how the 1% responds when the GPU is not at 99% anymore. And now this is a old school trick that you can use for any console port that is not super well optimized. Is you can literally just cap your FPS to a good, under whatever your max was. So if I uncap it, you can see my average is 111, 113. As soon as the GPU is at 98, 99% with all the trees and all the effects going on, it'll drop really easily on the 1% and 0.1 because it's juggling resources to push the maximum frame rate all the time. And like the wind blows, something in the scene makes something move, and there's not enough resources to stabilize the FPS because it's just constantly pushing 100%. And then when I cap that, you see how we were 85% on 0.1, 1% we're at 96. If I cap that to 102, it is holding 100 FPS. Like it'll dip when I get into combat and things happen, but it'll be more stable in general. Like it'll just be more stable for general gameplay. And the 1% low is definitely holding much better. There was a dip there because the mob died. There's still some engine-based stuff. I can't really cover everything in one video. There is still some engine-based optimization things that'll happen, like when you have an action that you can perform, like looting, you're getting an item, there will be these weird little, very minor dips in FPS, but they don't actually cause any mouse stutter. It just shows up on the FPS meter, but I didn't feel anything. This is, I can repair the bike.
Let's see.
Okay, so what we'll do now is, because I've ran out of these little auto saves. Where's my manual save? May 20, day 742. I don't even know where my save was. Pre-mission start. I'm pretty sure I was up to here somewhere in hard 2. But then this shows May 25. 933. And then I've got one saved that maybe that's where I was up to. Somewhere here. It can't be far, easy. Oh no, that's 2021. Those are actual dates in real life. I'm getting confused. Okay, so this is probably where I was up to before I started recording. 7:30. Try this. Where my bike wasn't empty. So yeah, just look at that quality. And back in the camp, we are at a lower frame rate. 80, 86, 32. And the GPU is almost pushing 100%.
Hey, Damon.
So I would even, like, if you're going to be going in and out of towns a lot, you want really stable FPS. For this particular system at this resolution, like at 2560 by 1080 upscaled,
Damon.
to 3440 by 1440, I would probably cap it to 90. That might be a better number for going in and out of camps. If you want the camps to feel it's 100% smooth, the same as outside the town, outside the camp, and we can see if that sorry, close my Facebook. We can see if capping it to 90 actually does make a difference or not. And then we'll try. It'll probably still dip on the 0.1. And I have loaded a fresh map, so maybe it cleared the cache, I'm not sure. But
D, how have you been?
yeah,
Hey,
see
Damon,
with the GPU
how's the
not
gun
at
trade
98%
going?
anymore, the 1% lows. The 1% lows are pretty good. So there was something loaded there. I think because I walked near, it like preloads stuff when you walk near certain vendors.
Hey, Deke. That was a life of
But
a
when I just run around, try not to bump into
Jazz.
things.
How's my girl?
Yeah, see, it's doing dialogue, so that could be what's causing a little bit of the dips. But that is pretty good. 90 on 1% lows, and if I uncap it, just to demonstrate the power of an FPS cap,
Deacon St. John.
immediately from uncapping
David.
it, it's dipping
How's
under
life?
90. It's dipping, see, I'll run around here again. 85, 70. Every time I go near this Mark Toplin guy, it dips because it tries to preload, but there's nothing there. He doesn't have anything. I'll just run back and forth here. So here, 80,
Deke, how's it
1% lows, 82,
Damon.
and
how's it-
0.148.
Hey, Deke.
How's it going, Manny?
Yeah, see, it's doing dialogue stuff. And then if I cap it, same spot, so that it triggers the dialogue. We'll see if dialogue's causing
Deacon,
it.
hey.
Hey, Damon.
No. Yeah, so take a look at that. The 1% low is just so much
Good
better
to see you, Deke.
with the
Damn it.
FPS cap. Just rest a bit so I can run. Try running fast. He talks, you know, he talks.
Deke, how
There
you
we
been?
go. No, it's still
Hey,
holding
Damon.
90. So
How's the
yeah,
gun
that's
trade
just something
going?
else. That's an extra bonus that you can do for. It works for almost any game, including competitive titles. You can get more stable frame rates by using an FPS cap. As much as they say that you might hurt your input latency at the peak, it's more important to have consistent input latency rather than the best possible input latency. So 110 FPS might be slightly lower input latency, and that's great, but if you're constantly dipping under 80 or 70, your input latency is not consistent at all. And this is the console-like consistency a lot of people will argue about with console optimization. Consoles have the settings tweaked specifically to maintain as close to whatever their target frame rate is as possible, and that target frame rate might be 60 FPS on a console. And they have the right amount of settings and an FPS cap. They don't run uncapped at all. And if they ran uncapped, they would get more 1% low, 0.1 dips. So just showing you that, because on a computer, on PC, you can do it too. You can also get it to be console-like if you find the right balance of settings and cap your FPS to a reasonable amount. Especially now we have RSR, you can get a higher stable 1% low. But, you know, there'll still be optimization things. When I drive around, I'm sure it'll dip. When I trigger certain action points, like trigger certain things like getting on the bike, just running up to the bike, caused a 0.1 dip. But in terms of how good this feels, with the FPS cap, definitely improved over RSR by itself. So it's a combination of more than one thing to get the frame rate as good as possible. But I was having trouble holding 60 at 3.40 by 4040 before, and now I'm holding 90 with 80 on the 1%. Like you guys saw that by testing. The rain could have affected it a little bit, but it was definitely dipping a lot worse before. Along this same road, we were going under 50 FPS, and the 1% was constantly dipping, and now the 1% is like bang on 90. It's freaking awesome. Or even 87, that's still nothing. Still pretty. It's going back up to 90. We'll see. Maybe pulling a few more mobs will get it to dip again like before. Try pulling some, I'll get in some combat. I mean, I could even cap it to 80, really. There'd be plenty of headroom then on the GPU end. And the game still runs smooth. What I wanted was stable 60, actually. That was my target. Yeah. So let's see here how the combat goes. Ah, didn't dodge. Good balance. What is my dive move? I can't remember. No, it doesn't really let me. But yeah, look at the 1% low for this combat. It's been holding 9. Oh no, there we go. There was one dip. maybe from the XP, but then it goes straight back up to 90. Like the GPU has more utilization in the tank that it can recover quickly from any dips. So the 90 is so stable.
Raider patrol, damn it.
How much health do they have? Okay, so we'll try something else now. Just one more thing before I end this video is because we do want the best possible image quality. What if I'm running under 100 hertz or whatever? I'll go to 3024 by 1296. So that's basically above 1440p. If you're gaming on 1440p, you can use this as a kind of a placeholder, as a you'll definitely be able to get 1440p performance at this level if I'm doing it on ultra-wide 3024 by 1296. So if you were aiming for like this kind of performance, you could get it with the same hardware, as long as you match the RAM. That would be like, sometimes people will say I've got similar specs, like I've got a 5600X and a same GPU, same CPU, right? You got to look at the RAM and to some degree the storage. Like if you're running a hard disk on your system, that'll increase system latency for background apps, and you don't necessarily want that to happen. Alright, cool. And as you can see at this slightly higher resolution, the GPU is working a little harder for 90 FPS. It's pushing really close to 100%. It's hitting 99%. That will contribute to FPS drop. So I would alt-tab out for this resolution. Slightly higher image quality, obviously. And then I'll tap it to 80 and see what 80 plays like. So this is what I mean, like how you can tweak it to your specific taste, like your preference. You can just do whatever you want. Like if your target was 60, you'd be fine getting 60 easy with RSR. But we'll see how smooth this plays out now. Not too bad on the 0.1. I didn't feel that. The 1% lows are a little bit worse. The resolution is higher though, so texture sizes are larger, and that could be part of why. Like even if you have 20 gigabytes to GDDR6, the bandwidth is the same, like the transfer rate, and that can affect, how frequently you get FPS drop and things like that. That was the same guy? I want his fuel. Can I take fuel from his bike? No. Wait, can I stand it? He has fuel in there, though. How do I get his fuel? Is there a way? Can't remember. I think there was... I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah. Whatever. Maybe I can blow it up. Let's back this. My own ammo. So, I don't know, we'll try going somewhere else. I have been testing in the same area, so we want to see how 80 holds. And yeah, there was quite a big dip there. I think that was loading. It could have been the resolution causing it. What we'll do now is I'll tap it lower just to see if that helps at all. 70. Go back over that area and see if there's a loading point somewhere here. And just keep in mind, this game was not really... Ouch. This game was not really designed for... Maybe more headshots, I swear. My hearing. Whatever. You can really see the combat frame rate. Put up high to 70. They move so like if they're really they dodge bullets. I swear that was a headshot. The one before it. These are like what's it called? That 7 days or something. You know that movie where the zombies are really fast and do parkour? So 70 FPS, and I wanted to drive across this bridge a couple times to see if it's a resolution or a frame rate cap issue. That caused there was like a really big FPS drop that I felt. Could have been the frame rate. There just wasn't enough utilization in the tank. Because as you know, GDDR6 has its own copy, read, write speed, right? Sometimes the copy speed or the, I don't know how to say it, the pipelines in the GPU, like for a really layman's explanation, like I don't even know the fine details myself, but the overall pipelines in the GPU, the resources that the GPU has available, when it's at 80% or 90%, there might not be that headroom to handle traversing to a new area. Or it could just be a dip that's built into the game, like now that I've crossed it, it's already loaded, and it won't cause any more FPS drops if I pass through there again until I close the game and open it again, you know? But I'll try driving further to see if it triggers another travel point. So there was a little dip there, a couple dips. But this is intensive scenery, like it's got the rain, there's zombies everywhere, you know. I'm riding a bike. Yeah, the 1% really suffered from that. So we'll see now. I think it's actually to do with the texture sizes. They're just really big at this resolution. And if I go back down to 2560 by 1080, and we can even have it back up at 90, like I don't think the utilization was tapped out there. And if I travel through here again, we'll see if we get horrible drops. The rain is very intensive though. Yeah, the dips are not as bad. 1% low is still holding 60 FPS. I'll try turning off RSR though. The rain plus RSR. I think RSR is sharpening the rain. So, disabled, enabled. See, when I'm standing still, it's fine. But I notice in front of the bike, the rain with the RSR is really thick. It could be thick when I disabled it now. It still looks... I guess it's meant to be hard to see through rain. So 85. Then enable. See how far I can go before I get like a horrible input stutter from loading something at this resolution. Like this is UltraWide 1080p. Much easier for the GDDR6 to handle in terms of large textures coming in, preloading, caching. It's easier for smaller textures to be cached and upscaled, I'm guessing, compared to really large textures that might cause that latency. Okay, there was a dip there loading in this area, but it could have just been the game. Like the game has its own loading as it streams stuff in. It just has that's just built into the game engine. So it could have been that. And if I stay around here more, it'll stabilize. Sorry, I'm out of fuel, so I can actually do this to keep rolling without having to push. Hey, you can do that in real life too. You can go left and right on a bicycle, and it'll help it roll a bit without having to... Yeah, there's a bit of hills here. Yeah, it's holding a much better FPS once I stayed in this area a bit. So yeah, I can't like diagnose everything, like some of it is just part of the game engine and how it is. I'm sure actual Days Gone players know that happens when you travel to certain areas in the map. When you get into a new zone, you'll just get that slight hitch sometimes. But in terms of overall stability, I mean, if I uncap this here in this lumberyard area, let's get off the bike. We were at 130 FPS here. Like even uncapped runs fine in this area. I guess there's no zombies around. There was a dip to 10 FPS. And if I cap that, so So that was a 10 FPS dip shooting the barrel. Now we've got 30% utilization spare. See the difference the FPS cap made? So we dipped to 10, we actually had bad FPS drop running uncapped, and then as soon as I gave it that spare utilization headroom, the GPU can handle it no problem. But actually, the barrels exploding does not cause FPS drop. It's being at 99% utilization. So I'll uncap it again. So this is uncapped. Oh, it handled it okay that time. Maybe it was just that barrel, the bad barrel. It could have been caching the barrel explosion, loading it. So I am planning actually to play through more of this game, but we'll see. We'll see if I can find another barrel and trigger another FPS drop from it. Yeah, 16. And there's more frequent dips around here. I didn't even have RSR enabled, but that doesn't matter. I mean, RSR is back on now, sorry. I turned it off when I was riding through the rain to see if it was causing FPS drop. So now with it on, disabled, enabled. Everything just looks a little bit sharper. Oh, this barrel. So we're uncapped now. Wait, I'm going to reset the counter this time. 104. Not too bad. So it could have just been the angle and the rain and everything. Combination of everything. So I guess uncapped is fine in some situations. But I've just noticed, like, just in general, I've noticed when I run the FPS cap, I do get more stable, especially on 0.1s. If I just run around this warehouse with the rain and everything, we're at 50 FPS on the 0.1s, and that is dynamically updating. It should have updated by now. That's just what it's getting in this area. There we go, 98. Back to 43 on this side of the this shed. And now if I cap it, we'll run around the whole shed. See what happens. See if it still drops. $67. $33. Okay. So something's loading here. But I mean, I didn't feel that. That is a 0.1. It is a very, very, very small percentile of frames. But the 1% low is definitely holding more stable. And that's giving me more stable camera, mouse movement, input latency compared to uncapped. If I run around this warehouse again, somewhere around here, on the backside, it dipped somewhere. Let's see if it does it again. Oh, it's holding 105 now. But the 0.1 is going 40. It's kind of hard because I can't predict what the game is, how the game is periodically updating its cache and textures and everything. The 1% is actually good uncapped. It's fine in this area, meaning that the GPU could probably handle 100 FPS, no problem. So 42 on the 0.1. Do one more lap, last lap, and then I'm going to end this video. But thanks for watching, guys. I hope something here enlightens you or helps you out, or just the RSR testing in general to see how good the game looks and how high the FPS can actually get with RSR. I hope that helps you out. Yeah, see, doing more laps, you can see that the FPS cap is giving more consistency. It might still dip eventually, like the game might try to load something. Could even be a background process on my own computer, because I do have Brave open in the background. I do multitask a lot when I'm gaming. That could have been triggering it, but in general, you can just see that running around this shed a couple times, we were going down to 40 uncapped, and now we're hardly dipping at all on the 0.1. And then if I uncap it, we might get a dip straight away. See you again. don't want to run the whole way because I was running slowly. Somewhere over here. $61. 45 there. So that was roughly what I was seeing some of the other laps of this warehouse. I saw the 0.1 go all the way down to 45, and it did it again when I uncapped the FPS. And it wasn't going that low. Very interesting anyway. Kind of a weird test though. It's like not really, I don't know if there's anything really scientific to this, other than the fact I'm doing the same lap, which is pretty easy to replicate. Where are we on the map? We are at this area, ambush camp. Or here, big map. The menu did that FPS, but yeah, running over here. Running should be more intensive actually, so if I run, see if it's dipping down to 45. I think it is more stable, but I don't know, maybe we'll trigger something. But I can't attribute, like my system is fairly streamlined. I've minimized any background apps, apart from the fact that Brave Browser, I think I closed Brave Browser actually. Apart from that, it's really just Radeon, Microsoft Windows Security, which I've disabled. A lot of the cloud, all the cloud stuff is disabled. Telemetry is disabled on this system. And MSI Afterburner, I use it for the OSD, but I don't use it for any tuning. So really, that's all. There's nothing else running. There's no hidden apps running in the background. And with the game open, you can actually see. I guess we'd see it under the Performance tab. So if you want to just compare how optimized your system is and see if it's as bloated as mine, just look at your. With the game open, though, you have to have the game open because that's what I'm running right now. Processors 120, threads 1470, handle 63K, roughly 63.1. Just if you want that reference, and you can see the core usage, how many it's using. Well, I've got the OSD in game, and we're using 9.6 gig of memory, and it's cache 22 gig. I don't know. That's there's a superfetch or something does that, but I find with this much RAM, it's fine. So yeah, just showing that there, just as a reference for anyone that is into that kind of thing. Like you want to see how bloated my OS is. That's how many threads and stuff I've got running. So yeah, you could probably optimize better than that for sure. But I think mine's fairly decent. Like considering how old the OS is, I've been on Windows 11 since the beta started, and I have not done a format or anything like that. All issues, I tend to just troubleshoot them on my end, like manually. I'll troubleshoot any event viewer issues or system bugs. Although I haven't had anything major, that's why the OS hasn't been reformatted. It's still running perfectly fine. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.